Today I thought about the French Revolution again, the miserably hopeless escape attempt of King Louis XVI and the fallout thereafter. I know it sounds depressing, but let me explain. King Louis XVI had become a prisoner in his own castle after that mob of peasants had brought him from Paris to Versailles. He and his family were now political prisoners in their own home, watched every minute by revolutionary guards who no longer bowed to them. In 1790, the Assembly passed the Civil Constitution of the Clergy. This law subordinated the church to the state and mandated that priests and bishops now be elected by the people and paid as state employees. Crucially, it required all clergy to swear an oath of allegiance to the new constitution, essentially severing their direct allegiance to the Pope in Rome. For Louis XVI, this was quite a significant event because his authority as king was divinely ordained. Now, if the church was subordinated to the state, he was truly just a figurehead, and he didn't like that at all. But there was hope. The royal couple contacted the brother of Queen Marie Antoinette, who was the Archduke of Austria and also the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, Leopold II. Now the problem was, they wanted the king and his family outside of France and safe before anybody from outside could do anything, because otherwise there would be too great a risk to the royal couple. This was the king's glimmer of salvation, in the form of this general and his 10,000 loyal troops waiting for the king. From there, maybe, just maybe, he could turn the tide. So, an escape plan was devised. The escape was primarily organized by the Queen's devoted friend, the Swedish Count Axel von Fersen. The plan required the royal family to travel in disguise, under the passport of a fictional Russian noblewoman, the Baroness de Korff. The royal family had to pretend to be the travel companions of a non-existent Russian. The disguises were almost comical in their inadequacies. The King of France, whose face was on the currency, was going to travel posing as a valet named Anne Durand. Marie Antoinette, the most recognizable woman in France, was going to pose as a governess. Even Dufon, the son of the king, was going to pose as a little girl. Fersen, the experienced conspirator, pleaded with them to take two carriages, split up, travel light and travel fast. But no, the king and the queen refused to be separated. They commissioned a custom berline, a massive green and yellow monstrosity that screamed wealth and importance. The night of June 20th arrives. First, the kids slip out with their governess. Then Madame Elizabeth, the king's sister. Then the king sneaks out. But Marie Antoinette, she nearly walks into Lafayette during his patrol. Then she gets lost in the dark Paris streets for 2 hours. Marie Antoinette just roams around the dark Paris streets for 2 hours with her funky hairdo. Finally, it's 2 a.m. on June 21st and the great escape begins. Dawn breaks and the berline's harness snaps, and 30 minutes are lost to repairs. The heavy carriage lumbers around country roads like a wounded elephant, falling further behind schedule with every mile. At Pont-de-Saint-Well, their first cavalry escort waits and waits and keeps on waiting. Suspicious peasants start gathering around and asking uncomfortable questions. With no sign of the royal carriage, their military protection melts away. Just 1 hour before the berline finally arrives at the now empty rendezvous point. The carriage arrives at Saint Menehould, and this is where the famed postmaster, Jean-Baptiste Drouet, a revolutionary zealot, gets suspicious. He's absolutely sure that he's seen that fat valet somewhere. So, he pulls out a 50 livre note, the revolutionary currency, and stares at the king's portrait printed on it. At this point, he's suspicious, but he's like, it's not possible. And then the news comes. The king with his family has escaped. And Jean thinks to himself,
Je le savais.
he mounts his horse and says,
Montre-nous le sens de la haute.
at 11:10 p.m., the royal family arrives at Firenze. Their horses are now tired and they must change their horses, and the new horses are waiting at the end of town. The berline must stop, and in that fatal pause, the postmaster strikes. He alerts Jean-Baptiste Sauce, the local prosecutor and grocer, who gathers the National Guard. They drag a cart full of furniture across the bridge, and yes, this is the great barricade that the royal family just could not cross. The king's identity is confirmed and the alarm bells are rung. Thousands of armed peasants gather around and the great escape ends in absolute and utter failure. The return to Paris was basically a funeral march. 3 deputies escort the captured royal family back, while hostile crowds gather around anywhere they pass and hurl insults and other things. When they finally entered Paris, they were greeted with silence, and the National Guard stood with arms reversed, the positioning for honoring the dead. And no man removed his hat for the king. The symbolism was obvious. The monarchy was no more. The king's flight created a constitutional crisis. In a declaration left behind by the king, he had explicitly denounced the revolution. Yes, he was that confident in his escape attempt that he burned all bridges and left a declaration behind. Anyway, to save their project of the constitutional monarchy, the moderate leaders in the assembly created a fiction that the king had not fled but was abducted. On July 15, the assembly declared the king inviolable and blamed the whole affair on this general and other conspirators. This decision was seen by the public as a lie to protect the traitorous king. The king's flight shattered what remained of the people's loyalty to the monarchy. For the first time, the abolition of monarchy and the establishment of a republic became a powerful and popular demand. This event irrevocably radicalized the revolution, setting in motion events that would lead us to the next video. That's all for the king's escape attempt. If you like the video, if you would like to add some information, if you would like to correct my pronunciation, or if you just like to say hi, do make sure to make use of the comment section. Do like, share, and subscribe. That's all for today.